Most Americans have no idea that ancient cities with advanced architectures once dotted the ancient North American landscape. Advanced ancient civilizations once inhabited the North American continent, and this fact was common knowledge just 200 years ago.
As Europeans moved northward from the Gulf in the 1530s and westward from Virginia after 1607 and westward from Plymouth Rock in 1620.
So a place people don't usually go to is Memphis. Memphis was the old ancient capital of Egypt. It has some very interesting statues to have a look at. It's a trip worth doing, just purely for the beauty of the countryside that it's located in.
Not without evidence, and the clues, though scattered and elusive, paint a fascinating picture. Firstly, consider the Alabaster Sphinx of Memphis, Tennessee. Discovered in 1911, this artifact bears a striking resemblance to the iconic Sphinx of Giza, thousands of miles away in modern-day Egypt. Could this be a mere coincidence, or is it evidence of a connection between the two lands, lost in the mists of time?
And they also had a copper helmet on the skeletons, grizzly bear tusk, and it was also called the American Valley of the Kings.
Many of which display a striking resemblance to the artistic styles and iconography of ancient Mediterranean civilizations. Among the most notable finds are gold and bronze coins inscribed with the portraits of historical figures such as Alexander the Great and Cleopatra, as well as tablets featuring hieroglyphics, Greek lettering, and even Latin inscriptions.
In the Bible, it states that Moses went through the plains of Moab. This is Moab, Utah. And then he proceeded to Mount Nebo. This is Mount Nebo in Utah. Then the Bible states he went to the top of Mount Pisgah. This is Mount Pisgah. And across from Mount Pisgah is Jericho. This is Jericho, Utah. That's crazy. And there's also a river named Jordan in Utah. Just something to think about.
People can experience this wonder up close in Clarksville.
That is Dunbar Cave, north of Nashville, where a very large archaeological site had accumulated in the mouth of that cave. We know it. That goes back 10,000 years.
The site, also home to significant prehistoric Native American cave art. Another stop in their journey to new discovery.
On May 4th, the New York Times picked up the story. The article tells of 18 skeletons of a quote-unquote hitherto unknown race and adds that the skulls of the skeletons were unusually large. And that was only one of over a dozen similar stories reported in newspapers in the late 19th, early 20th century.
We heard about these caves in the western panhandle of Oklahoma, far out west, in which ancient Egyptians and Phoenicians came to this land 1500 BC, 3,500 years ago, and they left their art, their markings in the rock called petroglyphs, claiming the land for their god, Baal. So this is how we began to see these ancient Egyptians came here and claimed the land. They brought that spirit of Baal to our land even before the white man ever came.
It's almost like they made a covenant.
They did. They made, exactly, Sid. That's exactly right. They made a covenant, and a blood covenant with Baal, and they claimed this land, and there's a timeline in that cave that wherever the sun hits it at any particular day, it tells the sun worshipers, the Baal worshipers, what worship to do on that day to Baal.
Intriguingly, some of these artifacts appear to depict scenes from biblical and classical mythology, while others contain maps and navigational charts that could potentially shed light on ancient maritime exploration. Egyptian, Etruscan, Greek, Scandinavian, Roman, Vedic, and Hebrew etchings and artifacts were all discovered. 5 8-foot-tall anthropomorphic statues stand in the main tunnel passageway. There are carvings which resemble the Egyptian god Anubis. Some are accompanied with hieroglyphics embossed on a gold plate. There are also Mesoamerican-style artifacts that resemble that of the Olmec civilization. Most astonishing is that deep in the caves can be found crypts, where the apparent bodies who left the cache of artifacts are...
One such article appeared in the Phoenix Gazette back in 1909 that still sparks fascination and curiosity to this day. It told of two explorers from the Smithsonian who stumbled on a mysterious cave in the Grand Canyon, a discovery that would be the link between an ancient world and ours.
When you went to America with this book, because I thought, what's in America? You know, and because of all of the assumptions I had made and what I had been taught as a kid, the narrative was simple. As little as I knew that there was nothing else there
exactly.
to talk
This was the view, and this is why America is so interesting, because what we have in the Americas, North and South America, is a gigantic landmass, enormously rich in resources.
We have an update about Arizona's largest national park. It is now closed to visitors. The National Park Service announced that the Grand Canyon will be closed until further notice.
Today is the first full day of the stay-at-home order for our state. And with that, some Arizona lawmakers are now pushing the federal government to close down the Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon has been a popular holiday destination for families seeking an adventure since the 1900s. It is still one of the most sought-after tourist sites in the U.S. But what if we told you that the U.S. government has closed off about 90% of this amazing wonder of nature?
The Grand Canyon. We told you yesterday the national park would be shut down along with the government, and today it happened. Visitors already inside the park now told they have 48 hours to leave.
To protect a 1,000-year-old secret. This new revelation could change how we look at history forever. A drone has just captured something no one was supposed to see in the forbidden area of the Grand Canyon, and these shocking discoveries will leave you questioning everything you know about history. So what are these ancient mysteries, and how and why is the government keen on keeping them away from the masses? Stick around as we explore the mysteries of this wonder of nature. The forbidden area of the Grand Canyon. Although the Grand Canyon National Park is a no-drone zone, a drone recently flew over what is now known as the forbidden area of the Grand Canyon National Park, an area that is closed off from the general public and only accessible to park rangers, military, and government personnel. This area spans across the region around where the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River meet, all the way to the Anasazi Bridge, and is considered sacred by many Native American tribes because of its cultural significance. Among the Native American tribes who live in the area, the Hopi and Navajo make up most of the inhabitants of the area. The Anasazi Bridge is a prehistoric bridge made of pine trees, perched 300 feet above the Colorado River. It is believed to have been used by the people of the ancestral Pueblo culture, from whom the Hopis and Navajos are descended. The government claims the restriction of movement placed around certain parts of the Grand Canyon is to protect the park's natural and cultural resources, ensure tourist safety, and preserve the park for future generations. But conspiracy theorists and alternative researchers insist that it is just an elaborate cover-up. The common notion is that there is indeed a forbidden zone within Grand Canyon National Park, despite the authorities' claims, and it's forbidden for anyone to hike, camp, or explore there. It is also believed by many that beneath this so-called forbidden area of the Grand Canyon lies a secret, the last remains of an ancient and even extraterrestrial civilization that once thrived right in the heart of the canyon.
My main interest at the time was exploring the cave. I wanted to know what it was, how far it went. There are bronze weapons in there, swords, spears, shields, knives. Many artifacts, something like 7,000. No two are exactly the same. proves that many of the things that have been taught elementary school, high school, and colleges are wrong. Treasure hunters searching for that cave. So I decided to completely hide its location. Search all you want, you will never find it.
The Mississippi was the cradle of a civilization just as grand, just as influential as that of the Nile. Utah is Judah, claims the theory. The similarities in the names are undeniable, but is there more to it than that? Could Utah have been a region of cultural and religious significance akin to Judah in the Middle East? Lastly, consider the Gulf of Baja. Some posit that this body of water is the real Red Sea.
But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee, since it came from Cherokee country. They didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history? I'll show you in a few minutes, and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to show you some more things that the Smithsonian, science, government, commerce colluded to erase. By the way, I want to thank the directors of the documentary Lost Civilizations of North America for bringing these stories to my attention. I was blown away. To find more, visit the website lostcivilizationdvd.com.
The more we find. Here we have an image of a diploma for the American Pacific Exposition and Oriental Fair for Portland, Oregon in 1905. So 1904 they have the St. Louis World's Fair. 1 year after, we get this one in Oregon. This diploma is very interesting. As we go down to the bottom, we have a photo, and we can clearly see in the background 2 airships, both looking different. They normally don't show this form of transportation in these photos. They normally blank out the sky. But as we look up all of these countries, we see the big ones. And then we see Caucasia. Have any of us heard of a country in the 1900s named Caucasia? I personally have never heard of Caucasia, which is similar to Tartaria. All of these countries that we were never told about. But this one wasn't hundreds of years ago. This was 1905. So they are now, in my opinion, lying and telling us that Caucasia, or Caucasus, is a region that has a bunch of countries in it, including Russia, which we all know have connections to Tartaria. But let's take a look at this list again from 1905. They are already listing Russia on this map with Turkey, France, Holland, Germany, Switzerland, Italy. All of these are countries. They are not regions. I'll say it again. These are countries. Why would they then throw a region in there randomly? That doesn't make any sense. I think we are finding, in my opinion, that there is more land that we aren't being told about that was here in the 1900s. And I think Caucasia is being hidden from us right now. We were talking about Caucasia. Really quick, I want to just throw this in here. That there is another country that is clearly blurred out. I wonder if we weren't supposed to see that one. So we were given a photo with the airships in the background in the sky. So I went digging and found this photo from 1905, World's Fair in Oregon, showing more airships. And since I haven't really covered this topic yet on this channel, in my opinion, and a few others, this form of travel was all over the place. It wasn't just created in the 1800s, and the Hindenburg event was used as a scare tactic to make these airships look faulty, removing this free energy form of transportation technology out of our lives. Do you really think that they put a gas in these airships that would be so incredibly flammable and fly them over massive cities? Or does it make more sense that this Hindenburg event was a planned event to get rid of this free form of travel and wipe it from the history books? Here we have a photo of one of these airships sitting in between the 2 spires of the Old World building. You can see that they use these spires to electrically charge these airships, and this was common knowledge. And in the very next photo, it's leaving the port. We are not given the truth about our history. This isn't something that we are ever told about. in our mainstream schooling system all over the world. Do you find that odd? Let's keep digging. We see that the U.S. Army had this technology in the 1800s, as well as the Navy. Now, this is a photo from July of 1931, and we clearly have an airship charging at the top of this building. So we have a lot going on here, and this was within the last 100 years. An airship charging at the top of this tower. Did you think they only charge at the top of buildings? Of course not. They had charging docks in the middle of the water. Here we have a photo of the U.S. Navy airship in 1924, charging from this boat. Now let's zoom in on this charging station to get a good look at what's going on here. Now this is a technology that we were never told about. This is hidden from our timeline, a clear proof that there is much more to the story than what we've been told, especially since this was not thousands of years ago, and shows how easily history can be rewritten. This technology should be common knowledge at this point. Here we have another angle in Rhode Island of the charging taking place. These airships were not powered by gas or simply helium. And if we switch angles here, we can actually see the charging tool that was used right at the top of this tower. They're clearly about to connect to the airship. So this, in my opinion, is clearly explaining what's going on at the top of these old world buildings. They were charging stations for the airships. They have the same features, and I guarantee you that they still turn on, since this was not that long ago. And I'm going to take this time right now to answer a lot of people's question. Will we ever find the truth? As we keep uncovering more and more documented evidence, we're going to find that the previous civilization was not that far in the past, and our current structures hold so much more technology than we ever truly understood. So in my opinion, yes, we are going to find the truth about all of this. We are uncovering the truth faster and faster. And this community gets bigger and bigger, with more and more people sharing their thoughts and knowledge. The mainstream history is becoming comedy hour at this point. So we can clearly see that these buildings all around the world may have had a second purpose, but they were without a doubt here to generate free energy, specifically for airships. And once you realize this, then we can go deeper and ask the question, was the previous civilization capable of using these buildings to power their flight that were so much more powerful, so much faster, and so much more incredible than an airship? I believe that they fully understood this technology. They were the ones that constructed it. They had this technology and were able to travel through the air so much faster than we can today while using the Earth's natural energy. These buildings are technology. They are able to extract the energy and are able to turn it into a fuel. If you're looking for a why, a motive to suppress this technology, well, it would 100% benefit a civilization, us. It's free. There is zero benefit to free transportation, free energy. Do we need to go further for the why? So when you go around your town now and see the top of these buildings, we can all understand how popular this form of transportation really was. It was everywhere. Now, we have talked about Tartaria. We've shown in this episode in the beginning how there are possibly more countries and more land, such as Caucasia. So we have Tartaria, but we also have Barbaria, where you would get the term barbarians. And of course, again, have any of us heard of a place called Barbaria in history class? Maybe you have now, but in mainstream history, this is not something that is taught to us. We're not being told the truth about any of this. And we have many maps of a land called Barbaria. And I believe that these maps are from the previous civilization. They are not presented to us in the mainstream history. So it's our job to go find them in places that are not easily accessible.
You know, they had kids on displays in incubators. You know, so it's almost like you're showing people like how children are made. You're teaching them how to farm. You know, you're teaching them how to grow food. You're teaching them all these things, and it's like, do the people not know? And that's where the other part that kind of started to blow my mind. Like, why are you teaching people agriculture? Don't they already know how to grow food? Like, didn't they go across the ocean and whatever? Like, you don't know how to have food? You know, so you see all of this, and yes, it was like some strange situation where people were showed, you know, technology, and then that technology would vanish. Even the big steam engines that were just massive, you know, 10,000 square feet engines, those all went away. And like you said too, the electric trolleys, they were covering up the roads with mud so that people didn't even know that electric trolleys even exist. Because when you see this, like 1876, the Philadelphia World Fair, you see the rails that were there, and then when they had the fair, there's mud on top of it. And it's like, oh, so people can walk. That's what it is.
New findings, prepared to amend or even overturn what is currently accepted. The rest of us observe with a blend of doubt and fascination, wondering which aspects of our historical understanding may need re-evaluation next. Beyond the immediate fascination with the map and the egg, these discoveries remind us of the fluid nature of historical knowledge.
They say there were already people here.
A wandering band of Navajo hunters came to this place. It was deserted and in ruins, just as it is today. The Navajos had no idea who the builders were, so they simply called them Anasazi, which in Navajo means the ancient ones.
The Navajo called the Anasazi the ancient outsiders because they done things different than Native American tribes.
In conclusion, the theory presents America as the birthplace of ancient civilizations, the original Egypt, the first Africa. It's a theory backed by evidence, albeit unconventional, that demands a second look at our understanding of history. So the next time you gaze upon the Grand Canyon or the Mississippi River, remember, you might just be looking at the cradle of civilization.
I don't think you even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches. I want to show you some things that I don't think you even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans. And I want you to know this part of our history because people erased it, and we'll get to that later on in the program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally. That's an important part of it. America's history didn't begin with Christopher Columbus came over. There were ancient cities with advanced architectures all across North America. Did you know that? Hundreds of years before Columbus came. You guys think, oh, the Indians, they didn't scar the land. No, not true. These were cities as large as any in the world at the time. London or Rome, they were metropolises. Archaeologists say they have found evidence of 200,000 actual cities of mound-like structures all across North America that were here long before Columbus. But we don't know anything about them. Why?
There are over 700 documented mounds in the Ohio Valley alone. Who made these mounds? Ohio's largest is the Adena Mound, over 70 feet tall. When these mounds were allowed to be excavated, they found giant skeletons ranging from 7 to 12 feet. Inside these mounds, they found gold and copper jewelry, as well as carvings of ancient languages and weapons of unusual size. Were these mounds portals, perhaps, opening up doorways to the underworld, gateways to different dimensions and realms? And Abraham Lincoln himself even talks about these mounds in his famous speech at Niagara Falls, saying, "Then as now, Niagara was roaring here. The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now." Why is the true history of these mounds not being reported when we know the Native Americans didn't build them? And why are the bones that we found in these mounds not being showcased in museums? If you live in this part of the country, look out. There could be one in your own backyard.
Huge mounds were leveled down in this area. But let's check out what the newspaper said about these mounds in the early 1900s. The bodies of a royal family of the ancient mound builders were discovered here. Strands of pearl, copper, and silver.
In 1826, in his manuscript, The History of the Cherokee People, the mound builders were greatly weakened by a plague. We entered the North Carolina mountains from the west, and we killed and drove off the mound builders. We burned their temples atop the mounds and then constructed our towns and houses on the mounds. The Cherokee never built any mounds.
However, without thought of their historic, religious, or cultural significance, all but one of these mounds were destroyed. The Great Mound was completely gone by 1869, and only one of the 27 survived until the present day. There was no law against anyone with a shovel digging up these mounds to look for souvenirs, and that's exactly what happened. While what was done here was an offense to the dead, and certainly a loss to science, what was found here was very curious. There were items made of seashells from the Gulf of Mexico, 751 miles away, and earrings made of copper that looked like long-nosed gods. These resembled statues and art from ancient Central and South America. At other sites across America, amateur archaeologists and trained scientists found that these ancient cultures were in fact very skilled in working with copper. Much like the Mayans, Aztecs, and Inca.
They did learn that the place had been occupied for a long time. Thomas Jefferson was well aware that there were very, very big earthworks.
What were these ancient earthworks? Ancient city walls, buildings, roads.
Discovered the ruins of an ancient civilization off the coast of St. Bernard Parish.
He claims there are large mounds underwater that may have once been the site of a lost city thousands of years ago.
Paul Murphy reports local fishermen have long talked about strange and unexplained things happening in that area.
The pyramids.
Chandeleur Islands are a chain of uninhabited barrier islands located in the Gulf of Mexico, 50 miles east of New Orleans. But 12,000 years ago, before a dramatic sea level rise at the end of the last ice age, this area may have been dry land.
3 different search areas.
Chandeleur Islands are a chain of uninhabited barrier islands located in the Gulf of Mexico, 50 miles east of New Orleans. But 12,000 years ago, before a dramatic sea level rise at the end of the last ice age, this area may have been dry land.
3 different search areas.
Now what the hell going on here, America? Looks like we got another pyramid in Pennsylvania. Check this out. Ooh wee.
Global family. This is the Pennsylvania pyramid covered in dirt. America is Egypt. I'm Newbie Wine.
So, pyramid. That you cannot mistake that for anything else but a pyramid. And it has everything. It's a pyramid. Don't argue with me. Have a good day. That's it.
I'll do a full circle of this whole pyramid. Why the heck did they leave the nubs? Look at that. Most of the pyramid is still under dirt. Like, how many thousands of years did it take for all that dirt to build up on a pyramid? There's trees growing off the side of it. This is steep as hell.